if I can have a very important and central question. Will the trees continue to grow again and again and again on our plots?
Oh, please, God, tell me you fix
in
it.
this update, I think so, yes. But
Come on! No! We're still got to deal with the trees growing in our buildings? Why? Okay, you know what? Get rid of the vines, please. Just get rid of the beams, everything else that you're putting in. And just get rid of the trees, okay? So first thing I noticed is this has been up for 24 hours and it only has 2,000 views. You guys can probably see that there. So I'm a little bit concerned about the overall interest and development of Pax Dei. That's not really a good sign. We're gonna watch this, but there were some things I wanted to go over first. I've pulled up the Steam charts to kind of see the overall health of Pax Dei. It looked like on release we had a nice peak, all-time peak of 11,000, and as time went on, it's just going downhill. We're gonna bring this into the 7-day. Actually, we'll do 1 month. So 1 month period. One thing I want you to notice here. Let me zoom in. The announcement for the November 5th update happened on the 17th, and you know, ideally you want to see some kind of interest come in. It looks like the last big peak was 700 players on the 6th, and we had a announcement on the 17th, and let's see what happened there. We had a peak of 400 players, and then it kind of got up here to a little over 500, maybe even close, 508 players. That's not good. So I'm pretty skeptical. It looks like peak viewership happens about 50, and that was on the 25th and the 23rd. So really, the category isn't doing so well. Peak channels 376, average channels 2, hours watched 1,000. It's just average viewers 10, viewers per channel 5. It's really in a bad situation. You kind of see here what happened at the peak. They didn't really hold on to attention for long, maybe 2 months, and it was a sharp drop off. So I was a little bit concerned. I think around the, what was it, August mark is when I was like, I think it's time to pack up our bags and figure out where we could go while we wait for this to develop. Let's go ahead and get started here.
First bigger update to the game post-launch, or like post starting the early access, but we're here.
Maybe we could improve this a little bit, quality. Let's do 1080.
So the provinces are still going to be the same, and quite a lot of geography is going to be similar to what you've seen in the game so far, but we have regenerated the entire world.
All right, so let's go over this. Let's break it down for those who can't see this. Let's see. So they're reshaping the world, new geography. Lake can now be a mountain. So pretty much they're just revamping everything, it looks like. New biome distribution, resource distribution, Inquisition faction. So they're pretty much changing the map. It's going to make it a little bit more exciting for new players, I think, and returning players as well. It's going to give the game some new life, but we'll see what they're doing with that.
Like a lot of changes on the the smaller scale of the geography. Like some of the bigger things have been changed as well. And a big change that we did is the biome distribution in the world is now different. And so one of the big things we aim to do there is the like the differentiation between different types of biome, especially the heartlands, was a bit difficult to understand because they were almost everything had like all the resources, and there was no feel of like actually like really understanding where to go to get each one of the resource types, and we simplified that so each one of the heartlands is now only going to be guaranteed to have like 3 of the core biomes. And then there's a bunch of like additional smaller spots in each one of the heartlands that actually like create a bit of differentiation. So there's a bit more inequality on the types of advanced resources you can find, and like the types of PV sites that you're going to be able to find between the different heartlands. So the heartland choice now maybe matters a bit more than it did. But it's not going to stop anybody from actually like getting started with the game. So like that definitely, like we're guaranteed that choice is like, it's just safe to start everywhere. But there's and this adds a bit more flavor as well. There's one more like new biome type as well for in the wilds. The reason why we needed to do the the rebuild is there's a lot of new PvE content in the world. And with the PvE, one of the big pieces of feedback to which we kind of knew before, but like all the feedback we've been getting post-launch like has been kind of amplifying this, where it was very difficult to solo almost any of the PvE content, because the like more or less like everything was basically just balanced into like it requiring a group. And the new build, actually there's a much wider range of different levels of difficulty for the PvE like sites, and a lot of these have actually been designed for solo players. So for people actually like into the PvE experience,
That's actually huge, because solo play was actually really tough. And I think that's supposed to be because it's an MMO, right? But I think in this game it was ridiculously tough. You really had to do some serious cheesing in order to advance in solo gameplay. Like I remember a lot of people were like doing this Mez fireball thing with bears because they just couldn't solo them. It was impossible. So they'd stand on a rock, stun a bear, fireball it, stun a bear, fireball, and it really just kind of made the combat even worse than it already is. Now they're talking about PvE, so I'm curious to see what they're going to do with the combat changes, because combat like alone, or sorry, PvE alone without any kind of combat overhaul, I think is gonna really not do so well. You need to have a really nice combat system to make it rewarding for both group play and solo play. So, well, I'm really looking forward to see what they say with that.
like there's now a lot of places in the world to actually explore, and you can meaningfully actually play the PvE parts without needing to always be in a group. And we think that this is even like really good for people who are like you love the combat the most in groups, because this still gives you the opportunity to spend time on the PvE content, like while you're waiting for your friends to come online, or if you're just one of the solo players, we have them as well. There's good stuff for you now here as well. Then we're getting onto like the things that the combat teams has been doing, and this has been spearheaded mostly by Christian. So the reason, I guess.
All right, so here we go. We've already got the combat breakdown. Running will become the default movement speed instead of walking, but players can toggle between walk and run. That should have been there. That should have been there first thing. I don't know why that wasn't there initially. Let's see. Falling damage will be more consistent and predictable. That's nice, because sometimes you would fall from like 5 feet and break both of your kneecaps and your shins. Every bone in your leg was gone from a 5-foot drop. So I'm really glad they're addressing that. Melee combat. Characters would automatically face targets during combat with smoother movements when switching targets. Weapon animations will be retimed for better responsiveness and forward momentum, making it easier to hit moving targets. Blocking will stop stamina regeneration and force walking for more tactical defense. So this melee combat right here seems like it can be a little slower. I don't know how the player base is going to receive this. I think that their combat changes so far that I've seen them discuss aren't going to be received well. It's not really... They say they want to go for tactical, but what I'm seeing is more like spam clicking. They did show some like animation cancels and stuff before. Spell casting, spell targeting will be more accurate. Target will remain displayed throughout the casting process. Early game spells will be unlockable in small PvE camps, benefiting solo players in small groups. And then we got some UI stuff, audio stuff for quality of life. But yeah, we'll see what they say about the combat.
Here is the like, oh, we forgot the introductions. So Christian is the like has been like leading the combat team, and there's been a lot of changes in how the core animation systems and how the core locomotion systems work in how you're controlling the character. And the one of the key things like that we've been addressing with this is as you know, the game kind of felt that it was fighting against your control all the time, and like any of the attacks always stopped you. And even doing like simple things like running after a bunny and being able to like whack it with a sword was not possible. And that's now all changed. So the combat actually now feels like you're in a lot more control. Like targeting enemies is a lot easier. Like hitting the enemies is a lot easier.
Wait, did he just say that you couldn't fight a rabbit before? I want to know who was trying to kill these rabbits, because I had no problem killing rabbits. But apparently you're going to be able to. I do know that one of the big issues was like, if you were at a different elevation than the creature you were fighting, that was an issue. Like you'd be poking into the wall, and it really came down to whatever type of weapon you were using.
and you actually can run after the bunny and like catch it with a melee sword. So this is actually like there's like lots of good stuff here that just improves the overall feel of what you're doing in the combat. And I guess maybe like later, like Christian, maybe you can cover this in more detail a bit later. Yeah. We redid the nameplates. There's a lot of feedback from people that it was like kind of hard to read, and like understanding the difficulty was challenging in both good and the bad, in that like sometimes you just like went to an enemy you kind of thought was like what the difficulty level was, and then just got killed immediately. And I guess there's now better the like signing what the like effects are active on the both you and the enemy should be better visualized. Yeah, and bunch of changes on the camera as well. We've been like getting like a lot of feedback from people like on the camera not actually quite feeling like quite what you expected, and that's now better too. So crafting wise, I guess what we already mentioned, there's the journal, so like basically a piece of interface that like lists everything you unlocked, and like you can get the print.
All right, let's break this down real quick, because crafting, one of the big things that I noticed with Pax Dei is like the progression is you find one item that you can craft and level up with, and then that just gets mass produced, and you end up like with people making chair walls and stuff. Like you just overproduce spears or whatever, and then it's just dumped on the ground, thrown in a chest. We had like boxes full of the same chainmail, boxes full of just garbage essentially. And it looks like I know they had discussed some kind of recycling that they're open to. I don't think it's making it into this update. Tracking recipes and ingredients, that's good, but I feel like there needs to be something more substantial here. Resource will be redistributed to follow biomes progression alongside PvE. It just seems like more quality of life here. It doesn't seem like they're actually changing how crafting works. But except for here, most professions will see an update to their recipes according to new biomes progression. So it's just like making sure that it's staying relevant to the biome, but not really. It doesn't look like there's anything here about overhauling the crafting. They're going to be adding the ability to move all stacks of an item at once. Huge. That should have been in the game from the first, like, you should have been able to do that immediately. Like, that's one of those fundamental stuff. Building costs, we'll reevaluate the cost of building pieces, update the loot tables to reflect these changes, curved beams, decorative grapevines, great, all good stuff. I don't think that's going to bring the player base back, though. I don't think that the graphs that we showed earlier are really going to feel a change from this. I think it's really going to come down to the combat. So maybe in a future update, they're going to be revisiting crafting again, but this seems to be majorly just mostly quality of life stuff, and also redistributing some of the recipes and some of the tables. I did see that they said they're going to be like removing certain weapons like the Zweihander and things like that. Okay, so recycle will be in a future update. That's huge. It's too bad it couldn't make it in this update. And this is, I think when it gets, we're gonna keep going with the video, but there's just one point I want to make, is that my biggest concern with the game right now and its health is just how long it's taking for them to make substantial changes. Like we looked at the graphs, the category of the game is dead by all accounts. On Twitch, on YouTube, on Steam, very, very low numbers, very concerning numbers. They got their money, right? They got their money from all of the packages that we all bought, but can they keep things running with the money that they've invested? Can they bring interest back into the game? That's really what it's going to come down to. And they really need to be pushing updates that are going to focus on the big concerns that players have. I think that's tweaking and dressing a broken system. Yeah, it really is. And it's like, you know, you could take a turd and paint it gold, but it's still a turd at the end of the day, right? Like, yeah, anyway. I doubt that crafting will be revised until they do a player wipe. They should have done a player wipe with this update, I think, if they wanted to test all these systems and progressions properly.
Review and like see the recipes, and it's just like all around good tool for like understanding like what to do where in the game. And the resources distribution revamp, that was kind of like part of the rebuild of like the biome, is because like given that we took some of the biomes away from the Heartlands, it kind of meant that we needed to redistribute like what you find where to make sure everybody can find everything. There's last time I checked, we had something like 2,000 recipes had gotten like some tweaks, so like ton of balancing there. Some usability improvements in like storage. Some of the building costs have been adjusted. Some new nice building pieces. So people who have been like expecting that, you're going to be very happy. So you can probably see the picture. So there's some like curved beams coming in. That's going to be.
It's going to be nice to have more building pieces to play with, but honestly, after a certain point, building was all there was to the game. And those are the players that are still playing right now. Those are, if we look at the Steam charts here, those players. Let's see here. We'll see how many builders we have, okay? All right, so going to the 7-day... Look, these are our builders, all right? We've got 500 builders, okay? Over the last 24 hours, we had a 429 player peak. That's what we're looking at for our builders. So you're serving a very small portion of the community here. It's cool that they've readjusted 2,000 different recipes. That's awesome. We'll see how that works, but it seems like it's still going to be craft the same object repeatedly, pump out massive amounts of the same object. And I don't think we're getting any kind of economy this update. So again, we're going to have more garbage to throw away.
Like very nice for some of the prettier builds. And what else? If you're tired of continuously clicking while chopping and mining, you can now actually like walk the tree and signal.
This is hilarious. One-click chopping and mining. Your character will chop and mine continuously until the tree is down, the node is empty, or his stamina is depleted. We did this with the map trick, remember? Like, you would be chopping, you would open the map, and then you would close the map, and you would still be chopping. We had to figure out an exploit for this, and they're finally putting it in the game. I don't know why it wasn't in there to begin with, but I'm glad that they're putting it in. Impact of skills. New skill, skinning, will have its own skill. Interesting. It will determine the quality of hides you can process from an animal. I don't know how I feel about that. It might be their way of answering the shortage, because you remember they were trying to like tweak the drop rate of the high tier hides, right? The orange hides, and it seemed like they couldn't quite get it right. So maybe this is their answer to that. Changes to loot permissions to prevent ninja looting. When an NPC dies, loot permissions will be assigned based on players or party who inflicted the most damage since the NPC's last behavior reset. Clan permission changes, huge. We'll update the clan permission to plots and items so you can restrict access to the aldermen and elders only. Absolutely massive. Big. New magic gear will add 3 new easy to unlock magic items. Updated gear design. We have reviewed the designs of some of the magical... So just some cosmetic changes here.
Click and then like the character's going to chop the whole thing for you. Yeah, so the skill scaling on the damage output when you like doing like resource gathering, like now actually like applies there as well. So that's like it can be faster at actually like chopping down trees and mining. Yeah, loot permissions obviously like was very sad that didn't make it to the launch. So now when you like if you kill something solo, you're going to be the only player who can actually like take stuff from the enemy for a while. If you kill something in a party, then basically the whole party is going to have access to do the kill, but nobody else.
Okay.
And the timer on like how long the body is going to be basically like explicitly available to the killers is going to be like visible for everybody. So it's going to be very easy to basically see how long that like the ninja looting is going to be prevented. And yeah, clan permissions. There's this. We're going to be continuing to add more there, but there's new way to map the clan rights to the plot. So instead of just like giving the entire clan access to everything in your clan, you can now define the clan membership tier at which they get access to like individual chests or the whole plot.
I don't know how easy this would be, but I wish honestly that they would have permissions based by player. So like if I wanted to give Naj or Swamp specifically permission to open this chest, or maybe like a group of players, right? Like say just Swamp and Naj have a chest that they're dropping their wares off in, and I want to give the 3 of them permission, but they're not in my clan. I feel like you should be able to do that. But I guess this is a good start, right? Aldermen and elders only, and you know that's a good start. At least they're showing us that it's possible for them.
And what we're probably going to be doing later is like adding a new tier of membership to the clans as well, so that there would be one below the current member. So that would be kind of this prospect level tier. So when you accept somebody to the clan, you can do that without actually granting them rights to access almost anything that the guild owns.
It's like a probationary period.
So it's going to be a lot safer to invite people into a clan and without actually like the fear of like somebody like just stealing everything. And yeah, the new magic items, I guess, like we're going to be showing. So we added a few things that are a lot easier to unlock for the new players. Because again, like for a bunch of the magic, it was just super difficult to get to like your first item, and it kind of meant that like a lot of people needed to play the game for like way too long before they started to understand like some of those mechanics at all, and visual goodies on some of the gear. But that's things on the high level, so I guess we can maybe show you some of the game live. So part of the team has been working on things that are coming out later this year, or like hopefully soonish. So this is the like what you're basically seeing here. This is not everything that we've been doing for summer. So there's other good stuff coming in, but we're not, I guess, talking about most of that yet.
Yeah, okay.
I wonder if I can make this picture a little bit better. This is really poor quality.
I could explain a bit of like what we're trying to do in this update. One of those like kind of like primary things we wanted to do in terms of player controls and the combat response was to increase responsiveness and usability of this. So actions will be more immediate when you do them, and you can cancel actions into other actions. I could showcase a bit of that. First of all, we got rid of the automatic walk thing. It's still an option. You can enable it in the options screen if you like that way of playing, but it introduces a lot of issues in terms of, like, for example, in combat situations, you accidentally went into walk mode when you didn't want to, and that caused a lot of deaths. So right now the default movement mode is running. You can still toggle to walking because there are still a lot of...
It still seems really slow. It still seems so slow. We need horses, okay? Give us mounts, please. Mounts? Yes.
Good reasons to do just walking, like RP reasons, or just you want to have a bit more fine control in tight spaces. A big thing is a melee system. So we reused a lot of the old animations in terms of melee, but it's from player's perspective, you could almost say that it's a completely new thing. So first of all, you can, once you start attacking, you can cancel into blocking. Basically chain attacks much quicker into other attacks.
I'm already going to tell you right now, the community is going to hate this. I'm looking at the combat changes, and like the people who complained about the combat, this is not going to satisfy them. This might do well for me, who's easily like amused and also entertained and satisfied. But just like what I'm seeing is just spam click.
You can cancel an attack immediately into a special attack. And basically we just allow you to kind of...
Hold on, I gotta see that again.
Basically
that you just floated over the rock.
Have more control over your character. On top of this, we basically have this targeting system that I cannot showcase here. It will automatically kind of face whatever enemy you're fighting, and there's a basically a movement assist in play, which will kind of steer you towards the target as well, as long as you're within reasonable like distance from them and have a you're basically aiming roughly at that direction. This doesn't remove the user control in this case, so we have accurate selection of targets. You can switch between multiple targets if you wish to. I could showcase this actually quickly with some of our debug commands. Just spawning a couple of non-aggressive enemies here.
Well, that's handy.
And basically I can target switch between them very easily.
It doesn't seem like a substantial change. Like, yeah, sure, the flow is easy. You have more directional control, but this is... I can almost guarantee you all, chat, that like this... The community is very adamant about how bad the combat is in this game. Okay? And what I'm seeing is not addressing that. What I'm seeing is, again, like just said earlier in the chat, what was it? Tweaking and dressing a broken system. 100%. would be exciting back in 2001, 100%. But, you know, there's a lot of neat things being done with combat. You've got a lot of action-based games that are getting players really exciting.
What else? Spellcasting. I don't have an offensive spell right now, but
Let's see how
well,
spells work.
We improved spell targeting as well. One of the problems was that people were saying that the in tight spaces it was a bit hard. Like if there was a lot of enemies around, it was hard to kind of selectively target a certain enemy. We improved that to be much more precise. Also for spellcasting, we introduced spellcasting bars that were visible on the screen. You can see spellcasting bars of your own spells and also the spells of other players and opponents.
I hope there's going to be a setting to minimize the UI clutter here, because I see what they're trying to do with these health bars, but this is going to get crazy. Like, some of us, when we went into the dungeons, I mean, I posted that dungeon guide on YouTube. We did a lot of dungeons, and I can see situations where this is going to be too much information. So hopefully there's going to be some kind of setting where we can adjust UI and maybe minimize this, because this is a lot. And this is only like 3, right? 3 enemies here. Could you imagine like a whole group? 10? Maybe more?
Basically, when I start casting, I see a casting bar. If I cancel it, I will. Can someone else also cast a spell so we can see it?
Yep. Oh shoot! I changed my gear. I'll do it in a sec.
Oh.
There we go.
Oh yeah, there we go.
And targeting is like much more precise now.
And you can cancel
By
the
the way-
spellcast.
You should, by the way, see the loot timer on the Zebian that I can't.
That's good that you could cancel the casts. That's good.
Yep.
We needed that.
So here we can see the loot time. I cannot loot the course because it wasn't filled by me.
I don't know if it's because these are dev spawn, but it doesn't seem like these enemies are actually reacting to being swung at. Like they're just, you know, standing still.
We also changed quite a bit of like blocking mechanics. Like
There's
right
no
now.
flinching. Dummy spawns, okay.
Let's take one else on. Blocking still works same as before, but we are now forcing you to walk in mode when you're blocking. And also, if you block, you actually do not regenerate any stamina. For some reason, I have infinite stamina right now. But that's what's happening as well. These are the basics. Should we go and kill some enemies in the PvE sites?
Sure. Oh, and by the way, the with the when we're saying that you like the loot timer is based on kills, it's the determining rule is basically the player in the party who caused the most damage gets the loot access. So it's you can't just like snipe the loot by just doing the last one health.
New PvE sites look nice.
While you guys are walking, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
So if you have multiple parties, how does that work?
Yeah, so this is not a dummy. These are not dummies, and there's no flinching happening. Like, that thing's just eating these hits in the face with no, like, reaction whatsoever. Like just said, this would have been exciting in 2001. I don't think the community is going to take well to this. Like Clueless Gamer said, I mean, it's good to be hopeful, but, like, at this point, I think a lot of people are fed up, and you're seeing that in the metrics, right? A lot of people are abandoning ship. And I think we're kind of waiting around to see what they're going to do. It is taking them a while. I think we're beyond the 1 year mark, right? We're well beyond the 1 year mark. This isn't happening in July 2025. We're not getting a full Pax Day release, okay? And if we do, that's going to be really bad. But what I'm seeing here is you're going to get people who are very, very opposed to this new system and are probably going to be complaining as to why so many resources were allocated to designing this particular system instead of something else.
For loot timers, is it just whichever party did the most damage, or is there like a threshold?
Each party essentially will be each party the damage from all the members in each party is tallied together, and when the enemy dies, it's the party that dealt relatively the most damage combined since the enemy last reset. So let's say you attack an enemy, it kills you, it resets, and then it resets kind of that pool.
Yeah, and the other thing you might be noticing is we hugely improved the replication for the player movement. So you can actually maybe see how smoothly like the other people on the screen are actually moving, because this had used to be like pretty choppy, so that even like if you try to capture like screens where like there were a lot of people walking, like it used to be a bit janky, and like now it's actually like it's a lot smoother. The buildings that we're at, this is one of the like the new PV sites where again like just designed so that it's much easier to engage a smaller number of enemies.
Yeah, so these solo camps are basically these are for solo content, and these are kind of like a way for players to also game spells if they don't have access to group content. Those spells will be.
I will say that the swinging feels better, but I'm not noticing any kind of improvement other than that. Other than that, yeah, I've already spoken my piece on the combat. I think it's really rough. It is so rough. The thing is like, these guys aren't new to this, right? They're not new. This is, they developed EVE Online, right? And of course, EVE Online isn't known for its combat, so that's definitely not their strong suit, all right? But this is the biggest concern that players have with Pax Dei, is just how unsubstantial the combat feels. Swamp says, this is giving me the idea of friends making a game together and slowly working out their issues, not an actual company pushing for their work to show for itself.
So it's an.
You mean like Ashes of Creation?
Allows me to kind of channel a heal, and this will reduce player downtimes when they are doing PvE by quite a bit, because one of the pain points is that early game players don't have any heals. This way, the game should feel more smooth, much more earlier.
So you're going to have healing spells early game. I don't know if I agree with that. I think, honestly, you should focus more on food than magic for early game stuff. I think spells should be something that you get late game. I really don't agree with that change.
Stamina heal. So this becomes relevant because, like I said, during blocking, stamina is not generating anymore. So in dungeon gameplay, you will need to likely have situations where healing stamina to your tank might be beneficial. Other uses could be like gathering. You just want to heal your stamina quickly and continue.
I like that for gathering. I don't know if I like that for tanking. Again, I really feel like this should be in the consumable realm. This shouldn't be a spell thing. Like if you want boosted stamina, eat better food, you know? Or maybe potions, right? Because what use do potions have now? Are we ruling out potions? I mean, obviously not, but it seems like they've got... I don't know if you can stack potions with spells. It's just kind of strange.
There's probably others as well. Third one is going to be useful.
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering, Bearfax. Like, why have these when we have, like, food and potions, right?
For traversal and PvP. So it's a movement speed buff. It gives me increased movement speed and infinite sprint stamina for 7 seconds. It also removes movement impairing effects. So if you get snared, you can just use that and off you go. Also, all the wildlife have been all the wildlife kind of for skinning have been rebalanced. So previously, some of the, especially the higher tier wildlife, was kind of very hard to do fight solo, and people were using the mesmerize and Pilgrim's Fire tactic to defeat them. We have fixed that abuse, but we also rebalanced all the animals, so it's not needed anymore.
And I guess, Christian, you added more animals so that different difficulty levels, so it's not so by balancing, basically there's like more animals like on different difficulty tiers, so it's actually
yes,
with corresponding loot. So just overall, like the hunting experience is better, like no matter like what the level is that you're doing it.
Yeah, and we introduced this.
For people who work on mainframe, just sent me this. So this is what we've got here from mainframe for Borv. It says, I mean, it's a decent group of people here, you know, at least 20, right?
Skinning skill as well, which will allow you to get better as a skinner. So you're gonna get better yields of from the same animals as you do it more.
Yeah, then there's like Solka mentioned, there's plenty of new building pieces. I actually don't have the number, but there's quite a few building pieces. Both some that are like brand new in kind of like theme and usability, but there's also the different building sets that we had before were not completely consistent. There were like some missing pieces and some that where you couldn't really build the same kind of structures. So all of them have kind of been filled out with some of the pieces that they were missing. There's also like curved beams, vines, more stuff like that.
I really think they're wasting their time focusing on building pieces. I really do. You know, because like, again, let's look at this. How many builders do we have in Pax Dei? Let's look at this. Okay. Let's look at 3 months. These are how many players we had. And down here in October, this is how many builders we have. Overall, we have about 500 builders. Max. Maybe a little bit more. 520 builders on Pax Dei. That's all anyone is doing right now is building. You had an all-time peak of 11,000. Okay? This is a very small percentage of your player base that is involved with building. Focus on combat. All right? Focus on combat.
So was that for the combat side or?
Yeah, pretty much.
Before
So that's it. That's it for the combat.
Side,
We just saw all of it.
I have a question.
Unbelievable,
about
chat.
Mez
Unbelievable.
Fireball. Like, is the plan for that system to stay the same, or are we building or moving away from that?
Mess Fireball is basically right now what happens is that the damage over time effect will break the Mesmerize. So
Okay, so we were talking about this earlier with combat, right? And solo playability. Because what you had was players standing on rocks trying to fight grizzly bears, all right? And they couldn't do that unless they used Fireball and Mez, okay? And what that was Mesmerize was a spell that would essentially stun them. They would Fireball, and then they would Mez them again, and they'd stack Fireballs, and it would create more damage over time. What they just said is they're going to make it so that the damage over time cancels out the Mesmerize. So at the same time, they want to make, more solo friendly, but it seems like some of these harder enemies, you're going to still need a group. And we're going to kind of, once this update releases, we are going to test this out. We're going to be going around and testing. We're going to be traveling with a very small group. My whole purpose for the next playthrough is just going to be solo to very small group play. And since this update is focused on solo playability, that's what we're going to be testing. Okay?
that's not possible anymore. Also, Pacify has been nerfed. So Pacify, especially the lower ranks, were like way too powerful in terms of stamina cost, and also in terms of like how much of the visibility range of the enemies it disabled. Right now they have been rebalanced so that like higher tier pacifiers are still very useful, but the lower tier ones you need to be more careful when you pass enemies.
I love it. Let's go.
I did have a quick question with regards to weapon swapping as well. And right now, kind of the meta is to just have 14 weapons on your character, and you just swap between the specials that are used. Has anything been done to kind of address that, or is that an intended kind of feature?
That's a good question.
It's not intended. Right now in this update, that is still probably the meta. There will be a fix coming to that later.
Cool.
This is something overall that I kind of get concerned with developers addressing metas. And this happened with Helldivers. I know it's a completely different genre, but that example right there is perfect for we don't want that, right? Because that's 14 different weapons that you're cycling out. That's kind of weird. But what if there's a meta that's not ridiculously like that, and it's still fun, but because everyone's doing it, the developers don't like it, they pretty much take out of the game what's fun. It's really, the meta of Pax Dei is just exploiting a broken system. That's all it is. And it's early access, so that makes sense, right? And so, yeah, I really hope as they move forward in development, they find out what people find fun. And if the meta is formed because that's what people find fun, really look into that and don't just get rid of it because, we didn't want it to play out this way, right? Empower the players. It's a sandbox game. players are going to do things you don't expect. Okay, you're giving them tools. They're going to build sandcastles that you never even dreamed possible. All right, empower them to do that.
Thank you.
Any other
And
questions?
Yeah. Sorry. If anyone else has questions too, feel free to pop in. I know that another kind of area, more on the PvP side, half the spells in game are not currently functioning on PvP with regards to like Mez, or Pacify or anything like that. There was talks that there would be some kind of maybe like a CC cooldown for players or something like that. Is that still something that's coming? Will we be able to use Mez in this update or in the future on PvP?
Using Mesmerize in PvP is not something that's not possible right now. There has
Should
been
be.
some thought about doing diminishing returns for basically crowd control in PvP, but it remains to be like seeing how effective those are against them to be, have Mesmerize usable in PvP. So right now I would say the plan is not to have it usable in PvP, but it might change in the future.
It
And I
should
guess
change.
with, like having the stun break spell as well, that I think adds a lot of new counterplay between shield bashing and all of that in PvP anyways with CC.
Yeah, and Swamp, he brought up diminishing returns, which I think is really good. Like if you were to Mez and then they break out of it, you Mez again, it's gonna last less time, right? It's gonna be a shorter cast. So I think they could do that. But like Just was saying, like they kind of do last minute stuff on this thing. Like, did you see they did the PvP event announcement where they were doing PvP in the Lioness? And it was like such a last minute thing. And they're like, oh, by the way, if you have no other plots, we're sorry. This is only going to be going until November 5th. But if you have plots, come and place them down in the Lioness and you can't even attack people's like plots. So I don't know what they're testing. Like maybe they're trying to see how and I can tell you right now, what players are going to do is they're going to place plots around the nodes and they're going to block them off. It doesn't take a test to like figure that out. That's just what players do, right? They try to figure out a way to exploit an area. So I really, they need to do way more open testing with this stuff. Like they need to allow Mesmerize in PvP so they can see how it acts, how players use it, right? If that's something that they want to put into the game later down the line, why not just put it in and see how it goes?
So there's another thing, especially for PvP, that we added is that if you block the damage of whatever is causing harm to you by 50% or more, it also doesn't or negates the kind of like other negative benefits from the spell or ability. Like for example, the one-handed spear special does a snare, but if you block that special, the snare isn't being applied to you anymore. So blocking becomes much more important in PvP.
That's
Also,
good.
Regarding the damage balancing, you notice that all of our weapons have like a combos. So the last hit is always heavier than the first hits of combo. So blocking that last hit is going to be more important because it does much more damage than the others. Also tactic.
So it seems like they're going kind of like with a Valheim approach. The problem I see with this is that there's no dodge roll. So like you've got like one half of a good system here. Okay, you just need to incorporate the other half. All right, which is mobility. Because if you're gonna have cancels, you're gonna have people doing their combo and canceling before the heavy hit, right? Because the heavy hit is essentially just a stun. It's going to crowd control yourself because you're going to be in that long animation.
That players need to be aware when fighting in PvP.
And then as far as blocking goes, are there any plans to introduce any type of like counterattack or dodge or other mechanics to amplify the expertise in combat?
So defensive abilities are something that we want to introduce in some form at some point in the future. But right now, like immediate plans, there's no plans to like we don't know what the plan for that is, like the details of that. It's still kind of
Wait, hold on. What? Hold on. I got to hear that again.
in the future. but right now, like immediate plans, there's no plans to like we don't know what the plan for that is. Like
There's no plans. We don't know what the plan is.
the details of that, it's still kind of in the flux. So some kind of defensive abilities for players is in the plans.
And this
Defensive abilities.
might be a too technical of a question, but for spell canceling, I know that some players really like to have the ability to queue up their movement while the spell is channeling. Is there going to be some way, because it looks like any kind of movement input is going to cancel your spell? Is there any way that you could turn that off and just make it like block is to cancel things, and
That's a
your
good point.
movement might not do that? So players can still, for those people really trying to get precision in there the first second that they can move after casting that spell, or is it going to be more you have to be able to time it right, and that's part of the player's skill for that?
Of course, we can think about like adding options for players that would prefer to customize the experience, but I would say that I think those players would do themselves a disservice if they would lock themselves in, at least in PvP situations. I think they're going to benefit from being able to cancel out of moment, but if there's a lot of demand for customizing that, like disabling moment cancels, we can consider it.
And then I have a question too, especially as we start moving into strategy with combat and fighting in between like server nodes or zones. Let's say I'm running from somebody that's shooting at me and I happen to cross a server zone. Is that going to cancel out the projectile that's firing, or is that like a mechanic that we would be able to abuse essentially, so we don't take damage by crossing in between server clusters?
So if you're doing PvP across, like basically right at the zone boundary,
Yeah.
They never thought about this. Holy shit. You can tell from the response. They're like, oh, how come we never thought about this? Oh, no.
So I guess currently, yeah, I guess like in even the Lioness, you can get to that situation if you're like actually like flagged and you run into the portals. I guess like in the future, basically the what we're trying to do with the level design is actually like minimize the amount of combat that actually happens at the borders, because we know that it's like the zone transition is like inherently unpredictable exactly how the client and server behaves like when you're crossing over, because like they need to manage the state transfer between the two. So I guess basically it sounds like we just need to make sure that it just doesn't happen.
How are you going to do that?
Look more into like just really making sure that the there's no compensations on the borders, because it's just super difficult to manage. But yeah, having said that, I guess that we don't want the zone borders to be something where like you can actually like escape easily, like by just like running for extended periods of time. So
Yeah, because like if somebody's like, let's say I'm taking arrow fire, and then all I have to do is cross the border, and it nullifies the projectiles, and then I could just go back in and continue fighting, right? So that's what we were curious about.
There's a question. Don't hesitate. Nina, Ava, maybe not on combat, but if you have questions on other topics.
Yeah, I have a question on another topic, actually about TPs. Yeah, the question is, we actually have a lot of TPs, right? But sometimes it feels that it's not kind of useful, because you are somewhere and you have to walk like 40 minutes, and it's kind of...
Oh, she's asking about the travel system because of like how much of a pain in the ass it is to get around. So I'm curious to see what they say about this.
It's like if there is something that you can TP from somewhere to another place, it's gonna be a lot better, rather than walking 40 to an hour. Is there any plans?
Peter, you want to cover that? Because incidentally, we're just talking about this today.
Yeah. There are plans there are plans for that.
Okay, interesting.
Not ready to share too much more about that, but yeah, there are plans to...
You guys got to share. I don't know why they're not being more transparent. Like, you guys got to share what you're working on, okay? Like, I know you're already trying to hype us up and stuff on like the current stuff, but like, give us something to look forward to, because right now this update is really not looking good, right? Because they have nothing. I hope that's not the case, I really hope that's not the case. But they need to be more transparent with the player base here. right? Where are the horses? What's the plan with fast traveling? You've got a new auto run feature. Great. It's still slow. You've got a way to run for 7 seconds without burning stamina. Great. But you need to let the players know what your plans are. All right. And then this whole like, we have a plan, but we can't tell you, or we don't know what the plan is. It's like, listen, you guys got to tell us, okay? Give us something. Give us just something, okay? Please.
For fast travel.
Yeah, but as just like we've said earlier, like fast travel is really hard design space for us because we don't want to trivialize the travel either, because the fact that actually there are distances, it should matter, especially for the game economy. So what we'll probably do is like any fast travel is going to come with the constraints on how much you can actually carry with you when you travel fast. So for example, like if you're actually going somewhere to get resources, what's probably going to happen is that at the beginning of a game session, you might be able to fast travel somewhere and then play, but you might, like if you're actually carrying something valuable, you might actually want to run back. So we're not going to be like goods transportation is probably going to continue to be something that actually like the things are partly valuable, because it might be difficult to get something from where you are, and you either need to go and get it yourself, or maybe with the upcoming changes, like maybe pay somebody to get it for you.
Yeah, see, that's we actually talked about this, transporting goods, you know, and I think it seems like they're kind of going a lot in the same direction as Valheim, where you can't bring certain goods through fast travel processes, right? Which I think is good, but we need more details on what that's going to look like. But it does seem like, honestly, so far the biggest update I'm excited for is economy. I don't think like I could see myself seriously playing this game every single day until we get economy and maybe like a better combat system. I'm going to play it. I'm going to play it, you know, once, twice a week when the update comes out. We're going to test out solo content. We're going to try out the new content that they've included in the game. And we're going to make determinations based on that. But I'm really, really excited for economy.
To continue maybe on the same topic, but I remember when you had spoken about the church, you said that with the blessing there would be also some TP and so on. I fully understand for the economy that it's not good if I can just TP to the seller or the buyer. I'm not talking about that, but today really, which is really painful, is when you have to go to a dungeon, which is on the other side, on the other map, or maybe to be able to teleport on the plot on some clan members and so on. I think we are not talking about the same thing. I understand we must keep the game quite not too easy, but at the same time, there are a few situations, honestly, especially the dungeons, or maybe to go to the Lyonesse when you want to PvP for half an hour only. Honestly, there are, I think, a lot of things we could do without going too far.
Yeah, exactly. And the kind of
It's a good point.
design space where we're thinking about the TP and fast travel is exactly what you mentioned, but that's still kind of that's essentially what we are kind of that we're actively planning right now, and sort of the.
So did he just confirm what the plan is? I'm confused.
Comes with like a limited currency that you could use, so you could if you, let's say your clan has like a base on the other side of the province or in the neighboring province, and you like every now and then need to go back and forth, or you need to get to a dungeon that's on the other side of the map. And then that would be a utility that you could use to those things.
That's a good point, just because like I think a large part of this is, you know, me thinking about how games worked in the early 2000s, right? Back then it was all about the immersion, it was all about the realism, but nowadays it's the quality of life is so big in gamers nowadays. And respecting a player's time is also very important. So like you said, spending 24 hours to pack 20 stacks of something across the map to try and sell it, buyers and sellers will not deal with that time frame. And it's like you might not even have that much time to spend on the game. One of the interviewers had asked the question about like, you know, what if I just want to get on for 30 minutes and go PvP in the Lioness, right? What if that's all I have time for? Is there going to be a way for me to just pop, I'm in Lioness, ready to do that? Or like we did a dungeon once where we actually had to go across 3 different provinces. Now that was pretty cool from an immersion standpoint, but like we had scheduled the event to take 2 hours, and we forgot to factor in how long travel time is. It was like an hour and a half to 2 hour travel time. So the event ended up being 4 hours long. That's a long time, right? And especially in a system to where like dungeons don't save your progress, right? Like World of Warcraft, where you go in, you clear some bosses, you come back later in the week to do it. These are open world sandbox dungeons. So you have to clear it that day when you do it. You have to have the time.
Is that something that you anticipate others will be able to utilize to get to you as well? So, you know, if
You mean like a rally or a muster or something like that?
yeah, like if, you know, I have a group of friends that are in a different clan in a different area, they can kind of, you know,
Oh,
go
yeah,
to
yeah.
that same point kind of thing.
Yes. So yeah, the fact that I
Don't
mentioned
wanna-
clan there didn't mean that doesn't mean that it was like clan specific or anything like that.
Okay.
Okay, and speaking of guilds and player-driven content, how do we see guild dynamics and territorial control evolving as the game matures?
That's something that we're actively talking about right now. And I'm actually kind of hoping that we would be able to give you a bit of a roadmap soon. But
Soon, TM.
like the direction that we're basically heading is like as we said a bit earlier, like the way we're thinking about PvP and like basically the
Hey, Ramen.
kind of warfare is that the clans are mostly about the kind of the peaceful loops of like building in the heartlands and like the basically building villages, and the feudal organizations related to war actually are a separate organization on the side of these. So we're obviously like a lot of clans are going to be like, so in some cases it's essentially going to be the same organization, like both on the PvP side and the same clan building village. But this is a parallel organization basically on the side, and you can choose to join that regardless of what you, like your clan is actually doing regarding PvP. And we do want to have this mechanisms by which they can like compete meaningfully, and like there's probably going to be like building mechanics outside of the heartlands that are going to be related to actually like the competition between the feudal organizations or at least players who are basically want to live in more dangerous areas. But like we're actually coming up with deciding on like some of the mechanics that we're going to be starting to implement like the first in that space. So not coming.
There's one thing that I really respect about this development team from what I'm seeing is that they're in a constant state of flux. Like they're not strict to each and every plan that they lay down. They're very flexible, but I think that also leads to a lot of player frustration. Like they're like, okay, yeah, we might want to work on this mechanic, but we're eyeballing this stuff, and it's like they're kind of always adapting and moving around and kind of changing things. There's no like, you know, from point A to point B plan. It's like they're going from point A to point D to point B, depending on what they need to do, right? So I think I really respect that, but I also think without the future projected transparency that we need, you're going to end up with a lot of frustration. They should more like they are still about building a game, not moving forward on anything. Yeah, well, it's they did say that this game is like early access in the pure essence of the word. Like this is early access. It should have been an alpha, and they've even admitted like if we go to one of their Discord announcements here, they were like, did we release early access too early? Maybe. You know, they're even asking themselves the question. I think they understand that this should have probably been left a little longer to cook before they released it to the general public. They're very cautious. That limits stuff. A lot of times you need to be brave and overpromise for development teams to really extend themselves and become great. I think overpromising is kind of a slippery slope, though, because like you look at games like No Man's Sky. Now, they were able to turn it around. It took them a little while, but they received some serious backlash for overpromising. Cyberpunk, okay? There was also that one the day before. We're kind of at this point now where we've got serious trauma from games that are overpromising and don't even deliver.
In the next few months, but very actively being like actually designed right now.
Nice.
If I can have a very important and central question. Will the trees continue to grow again and again and again on our plots?
Oh, please, God, tell
So
me you
in
fixed it.
this update, I think so, yes, but the
Ah,
actually
come
the,
on! No! We're still got to deal with the trees growing in our buildings? Why? Okay, you know what? Get rid of the vines, please. Just get rid of the beams, everything else that you're putting in. And just get rid of the trees, okay? Please. I don't want trees growing in my house anymore. Can we solve that?
the things we're looking into is the like probably block trees from growing on your plot, and we're looking into right now like the entire plot blocks, all the resources being like spawning like on the entire area of the plot, and we actually might be able to change that so that the like only the parts that are built on the plot blocks the resources. You can still like you can start to build on the like side of a lake and like still actually like have some of the clay appear next to your house.
And related to the trees, conversely, also allowing you to plant trees basically where you want them for like aesthetic reasons.
I don't want to plant trees. I want to get rid of them. Okay, we need less trees, not more, please. Less trees. I want to be able to build a... See that forest back there? I can't build a house in that forest the way I want to. Because those trees are all going to be growing through my house.
And or for farming.
When maybe the herbalist will be finished. In fact, I suppose, because there are still it's herbalism, yeah, I think so, the English name for that, and the jeweler also, the missing professions, I suppose for the plant trees, yeah, it will be connected with the herbalism profession.
Sorry, I didn't
I think
catch the
he's
question.
referring to the crossbow because the crossbow was removed before.
No, sorry, I was still on the trees, but maybe the audio is not good. I was saying we still have missing a few professions like herbalism. I don't know the English name for that. So I suppose that it's connected with planting trees and replanting the forest.
Potentially connected to that, yeah. But but like you mentioned, jewelry.
Oh, botany. That's what he's
to some
talking
extent,
about. Botany.
alchemy is like fairly slim. Like some of the professions are either sort of missing or not very, very well fleshed out yet. We do want to give those attention and do them really well. And like you know, we have some progression, of course, with like tree chopping and mining and prospecting. We're just starting to add like a bit of progression for like gathering, but it's not there yet.
Kind of on the topic of that as well, with the addition of skinning, do you see like similar kind of gathering professions for things like gathering flax or other types of resources? And then also on the flip side of that too, armor smithing and blacksmithing and weaponsmithing have a lot of love, where it seems like there's a very clear, you go and mine, that's a mining discipline. Then you have your blacksmithing, which kind of refines it, and then you have your armor smithing, which makes it.
I love Eltari's questions, by the way. All of his questions have been phenomenal. Eltari, if you're watching this, you're an absolute legend. Thank you for asking the questions you did, because these are like really, really good questions.
That kind of a tree that you're planning for things like leatherworking or tailoring as well?
Yeah, I mean, they may not necessarily be completely symmetrical, but yes, like for these different parts of the process, we like it to be like give people avenues to be like specialize more. That's kind of what I was referring to with a bit more progression and make it a bit more interesting, because right now you're basically just walking around picking up stuff from the ground, and there's not very much like skill or character progression involved, other than just like game knowledge and understanding where to find them.
So with that being said, like what is like your ideal vision, from a development standpoint, as to how you guys want players to be able to influence the world and shape their own stories within Pax Dei?
That's pretty broad.
It's very broad.
Question.
But I think the basically a lot of that the discussion we're having over the like how we do the bigger organizations of like allowing you to grow like social organizations bigger than the clans, and like the clans to join together and like in some cases compete over like controlling pieces of land outside the heartlands. Obviously, it's going to hugely affect how the individual world or like the shards feel, because those organizations are maybe like probably feel different depending on who's actually leading them and like how they choose to play. And so the long-term vision we'd had for the game for a very long period of time actually revolves a lot about the giving players the capability of like actually like forming these like large like kingdom level basically organizations, and how you choose to actually use them to shape how the other people need to play the game in that world.
To me, it boils down very much down to like when you go, like when you meet someone and like you know, some years after playing the game and you're reminiscing about it and telling stories, like all of the stories about the people who played the game and like what they did and how it was different from somebody else. And it's not really about.
That's one thing I've liked about the game so far, and they've accomplished this. I mean, that's a really big positive to take out of this, is that you do get really good stories out of this game, especially on the RP server. And we're going to be looking to create some stories with the new update. But that is one thing they've done really well. And I think if they keep going in the direction to where there's more variation in biomes and different things outcome, we need to have people to tell a story too, you know, like you need people to want to play the game. And in order to do that, you need to fix your combat system, okay? We need to focus on combat. We need like a full update just focused on combat alone. That's it. All resources on combat. Do research on what gamers want, what your players want, what they're expecting, and see if you can match that expectation, because that is what's going to get players to stick around.
About the game, like, don't really want the game to be in the way of like people telling their own stories, and so the societies and things that happen on one server to the next are like as unself-similar as possible. That they're like actually, and that's kind of, I think, why the building system shines really well, because it makes everything is visibly different and visibly unique. When you're playing the game, you feel very much like you're doing something that nobody else has done, because your buildings are different. That's kind of how we think of the social structures and how people progress through the game in their kind of, in their feudal organizations or clans or other kind of meta structures like the churches and whatnot, that people have enough kind of like a simple, interesting rule set to play with, that allows them a lot of freedom and agency to do, to have like unique experiences that are cool and shared with other people. I know that answer was also really broad and didn't give you like a specific thing. That's kind of that's very much how we think about the game, and when we're really kind of evaluating what features and what efforts are worth it doing. If that we're, sometimes we need to curate a little bit, with the experience that you have, but we try to do it as little as possible and rather have like try to make simple rules that allow people to have unique experiences that don't feel very much curated.
It makes sense because especially when we saw the Unreal Showcase, the way that you guys are like, you do the building system, right, which is amazing, have all these modular features. And then when you guys showcase the armor customization as well at the Unreal Showcase, is developing and designing our characters in terms of skills and professions, and creating our own class, is that kind of going to be handled in the same kind of modular function?
Funny that you discuss about RPG, because that's also one of those things that we just talked about today. It's something that we are looking at, but the plans for those are not nailed down yet. So what we are looking to do is to do class basically have cloth wearers, leather wearers be useful in their own way in combat, but the exact details are still in flux and being discussed.
So reading through the questions in the chat.
Yeah, feel free to take one of them, some of them as you want. It was prepared before, of course.
Yeah. Oh, the really easy one. So two-headed sword. The simple reason that was removed is we wanted each one of the weapons in the game to have like some unique flavor of capability, and for this update, we just didn't have the time to actually make sure that all the weapons in the game have some like meaningful differentiation. So I'm sure the two-handed swords, they will make a comeback eventually, but that needs to come with some specific use.
Okay, so this is he just said we didn't have enough time this update. I didn't play the alpha, right? The friends and family alpha. But from what I've heard from people who have, was there was very, very little that changed between the alpha and the early access. Very little. And the game we got was pretty much similar. The early access anyway. Okay, so we got one year, right? And then some months. So games have been out since July. I mean, I would say that's enough time to get these things sorted. It like just says, it does feel like they're like really just in too much of a flux almost.
For the weapon type.
To be clear, it's not all 200 swords. It's the great swords.
Yeah,
So
so
like Zweihander.
Right.
yes.
Yeah, they removed
So
Zweihander.
this is basically a 200 sword. And still in the game.
The Zweihander was badass. They shouldn't have removed that. That thing, whenever you saw someone running around with a 7-foot sword, it was the coolest thing. And like, they should have kept that. Maybe they'll bring it back.
Lore, yes, we very much still like are intending to put a like more into the game. I was just actually maybe reading some text that's going to be appear in items that you can find, not in this update, but in the future.
Not anymore. You don't clueless.
Yeah, basically the night church stuff. We're like actually making some of that right now. We don't know exactly. So it's gonna appear in like small pieces over time. So there's not gonna be like we'd like to get some of those things into the game as soon as possible. So we're not gonna be waiting for a like mega update that introduces a massive amount of the features in one go. And yeah, so we're like, I'm hoping that the next bigger update is gonna have some of it. But
I hope so too.
Actually, just don't know yet.
Got it. And would you say that the economy system or like gold, is that something that you guys are more focused on now?
Yes.
Than the feudal system?
Yeah. So so basically the market's gold, and useful gold is that's the next major thing that we really want to put in the game, and we want to go to come to your hands as soon as possible. So that's
good.
So there's a couple other things we're doing as well, but the markets is basically that's the main push in terms of the gameplay.
I'm sorry, but will be like a trading post or like vendors in our base or something like that?
Yeah, I guess we haven't really discovered. Peter, can you remember? Like, did we ever really tell anything about it?
No, you didn't.
I'm not sure how much. I'm not sure how much detail we've shared about that yet. But essentially, it's kind of harks back to what I was saying earlier, like trying to provide like simple mechanics that give players the ability to kind of, provide content for other players. So
good.
Vendors no, but essentially, players and player organizations will be able to build their own markets and put up wares for sale. That's kind of the core of it.
See, that's going to be awesome because this playthrough with this update, we're going to be solo adventurers. And the next update, we're going to be merchants. So we could test that out. So that's perfect. We've got a plan laid out. That's good. That's good that they're working on that. That's really good.
We'll continue working on it to make it easier to kind of browse markets in the area and set up buy orders for items, things like that. But yeah, we're actively working on basically the markets that you can build and set up for like visiting travelers and traders to sell your goods, and gold, of course.
Yeah, and part of the future, the market's obviously also going to be that the strategic placement of where you're running your market is going to be super important. So right now you can only like obviously build them in the heartlands. That might change, and so the amount of things you can get in each one of the heartlands. So like we're looking into making the economy deeper as well.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys ever played Eco, but it sounds like that's the direction they're going in, which is huge. Because like if you can have a market stall and be offline and have buy and sell orders, so a player can come up and buy and sell based on your buy and sell orders while you're offline, and then you have like maybe some kind of storage linked to that stall where the goods that you buy go, and maybe the gold as well. I think that would be amazing. That would be a perfect use of that system.
Where you live is actually like you're always going to have some things available in your local area that might be very hard to get somewhere else in the world. And conversely, vice versa as well. So like if you actually like live on the opposite corners of the world, those people will have something you want and the other way around. So actually, like working as a traveling salesman is going to be a lucrative business for some of the players.
One question that I would kind of add on to that for the market system is, I would imagine some of these
He's
new
got an arrow in
PvE
his
sites
head.
are going to be
Sorry.
where we might acquire gold in the future. But what typically when you add gold, it's because there's some intrinsic kind of sink that's going to receive all of this gold
Good
that gives
question.
it that intrinsic value. Can you maybe share a little bit of what that intrinsic value might be in the future? Or is that too difficult of a question?
No, it's
Such
not
a good question.
Like I'm not sure if I want to spill the beans on that.
Okay.
No, I'm just smiling because I think there have been like 5 or 6 great questions in this interview that we literally had extensive meetings on today and yesterday.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think what they're going to end up doing is like, because they're going to have this whole night system. In order to run your keeps and stuff in the wildlands, they're going to probably have it to where you can, like, you have to pay an upkeep. And that's going to be the big sink. That's the only thing I can foreseeably see them doing. But it doesn't sound like they're willing to cover that right now.
So,
So there will be intrinsic value, though, that you're working on for this. It's
Gold
not
is
just
going
going
to
to
be
be
very valuable. Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
yes.
Yeah, I guess the takeaway, even though we cannot talk about those things, is that we are probably working on the right things. So what the community wants, we want to also build, but we are not there yet. So we are working on them like all the time.
Yeah, but yeah, basically the like just regarding the gold economy, like because obviously we've been working on like MMOs before, and like and playing a lot of MMOs, and
Do you play
we think, like,
BDO?
one of the critical aspects of like having the gold economy actually be something that will continue the work in the future is that there needs to be such a good gold sink in the game that everybody's gonna want basically like to have like endless amount of gold, and you have the opportunity to spend a lot of it. So the first version of the gold sink might not quite get there, but we're going to be adding more content into it, and I think I'm very happy about what we're building right now to be able to provide a robust sink.
Okay, and you mentioned, you guys mentioned that, economy is going to be a thing, and then being able to create clans and then form feudal systems are also going to be a thing. How do you guys plan to keep the balance between PvE and PvP to keep both sides of the field relevant and still fun for your players?
I guess.
Yeah, I mean,
that's the
guess
$100 question.
I mean, the core of the answer, really, to my answer at least to that, is that like each of the kind of the established game loops in the game, whether it's gathering or crafting or building buildings or doing PvP or doing PvE or any combination of those things, we're making sure that players who are like hardcore kind of focused on any of these game loops are producing some kind of value that like they're doing the best. They're producing some kind of value that's like that their clan needs, whether it is gathering like bulk materials, gathering magical relics, earning gold, etc., or like producing consumables. So we're kind of, as we are actively working on our kind of PvP and territory control plans, we are like taking care to make sure that PvPers have something really valuable to gain that is valued by other people in the player base.
Good.
And at the same time making sure that like people who are farming or crafting or focusing on like raiding dungeons, that they're also like earning something that's they're earning something that's that isn't more easily done in a different game loop. So like people who want to raid dungeons and that they're hardcore kind of dungeon runners or PvEers, that they're bringing value into the game, into the economy that you can't really get any other way.
I mean, we learned how important it is to feed your PvPers. You got to take care of your PvPers. But again, the combat system needs rework. I'm going to say that like 20 more times. This is like their first combat update, hopefully not their last. I think they're going to be very surprised by the feedback they get about this system. Very surprised.
Yeah, the PvP setup that we'd love to get, actually, there's some pretty strong incentives for even the PvPers to like not just blindly kill everybody in the PvE area, like PvP areas. Because right now, like if you go to Lioness, you can basically like you just like no reason not to kill anyone you meet.
It's fun.
The way we're actually looking at it is like making it so that PvPers actually are probably going to be incentivized to police their own areas and keep people safe where they're in control, because it's in their economic interest to actually make sure that is the case. Because at least to be like the PvP, which is just like everybody's after each other, that's kind of like the most boring version, because you don't really need to care about factions. You just like kill everything in sight, and we're actually like looking to do something a bit deeper and more complicated.
And
I mean, I like that idea because right now Lioness is kind of like the Wild Wild West, right? Like everyone's just out there killing each other. There's no rhyme or reason to it. You see a guy, you beeline it for him, you kill him, you take everything he has. I've done it before. I've had it happen to me too. I mean, it's kind of fun, but it seems like they want to provide some more structure, like a reason for you to go and establish some kind of stronghold, which is pretty neat. I'm kind of worried about how that would look with really, really big guilds, though. You get Zerg guilds that pretty much dominate everything. Once a Zerg guild moves into a server, it's over. It's over for everybody else.
As we move through this PvE and PvP evolution, how is magic going to come into play, and how will that evolve over time?
I mean, Christian, of course, if you want to talk through it, but I mean, magic, at least as present in the game right now with like spells and combat and stuff like that, I mean, we want to add a much larger library of like special abilities and spells that people kind of theory craft around and come up with classes and to be able to like fill different roles in combat. But then outside of combat, even we're part of some other stuff that we were just talking about also involves like non-combat magic and spells and like miracles and rituals and things like that can affect the world, and it can affect activity that you're doing outside of combat when you're
like walking on water
and getting blessings
cool.
from like divine blessings and stuff like that. Yeah, so magic is like it's a big part of kind of the storytelling, the world storytelling that we want to do, and so yeah, we're working on that. I don't know if that answers the question necessarily, but
oh, it definitely does. Definitely does. I can let my imagination run wild now.
Yeah, and there's also like while magic in the game is gotten from dungeons mostly, and it's kind of rare. All of it's player crafted in a way, but we want to have some magic that is more common, but while still keeping like those more rare.
All right, so that's pretty much it. I mean, we've pretty much seen the meat and potatoes of it. I don't know if this is going to see a big recovery, Chad. I really don't. Like this is where we're at during launch, 2,471, and now we're down to like 500 builders. I kind of can guess that people aren't going to be too excited about it.